وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما تعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So we stopped at ayah 168 for Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O humanity, eat from that which is lawful and good on earth and do not follow Satan's footsteps. So there's a number of things here. Number one, we have to understand that the pagan Arabs, the mushrikeen of the Arabs, what they did is they took the religion of Sayyidina Ibrahim and then they added to it and they added to it and they added to it until they had a new religion. Right? And that's the case with every single religion. Look at any religion in the world, it's the same thing. You can find truth in every single religion because every single religion was originally true until they changed it and changed it and changed it and changed it and changed it until it doesn't look like anything at all. Right? So let's say, for example, if you think of any type of shirk, they always have a chief god, right? Like Odin, he's the big god. Like this is the god of the Vikings and the Germans, etc. Right? And then you have this god. He has a wife and he has kids, etc., etc., etc. So they always believe in one big god. So you could imagine originally they had a god called something Odin, and he was the one god, the only god. And they called him Odin, they call him Zeus, they call him Allah, they call him Khuda. It doesn't matter what you call him. And then bit by bit, this changes and that changes and this changes and that changes. For example, in ancient Iran and Afghanistan, what did they used to say? They used to say that there was one god who is good and one God who is bad. So that's a very simple mistake. There's Allah and Shaitan, but then you put Shaitan on the same level of Allah, right? And it makes sense because we say as Muslims, right? As Muslims, we say Shaitan is just a slave of Allah. Shaitan does exactly what Allah wants. So somebody could be confused and say, that doesn't make sense, bro, because that means Allah's bad. See what they're saying? That if Shaitan was in the control of Allah and Shaitan does what Allah wants, that means Allah's bad. So that's a shubha, that's a problem in people's minds. And so bit by bit, they change this and change that. And you change one thing, change something else, and you have a new deen. Very simple, right? It's very simple, right? And so this is what the Shaitan does. He changes things bit by bit by bit. And so for the pagan Arabs, they said there's Allah is the creator of the universe, but Allah has daughters, and they are the angels. And if it doesn't work out with Allah, you go worship his daughters. It's okay, right? Because that's how they did things. And then they invented lots and lots of rituals, weird things they added to the deen. So, for example, they had all these rules about halal and haram food, and a lot of them were very good for business. So we mentioned before, I mentioned again that, for example, the Quraysh, they said this is a sacred place, which is true. This is a sacred place. So therefore, you cannot bring in clothes and you can't bring in food from outside the haram. You can't do it because it's not sacred. So when you come to the sacred place, you have to bring sacred food and sacred clothes, and you don't have any. So you're going to have to come and buy from us. It's good for business, right? And then a business problem. This tribe worships another god. It's okay. You can import your god as well. Right? So this is what we're seeing, for example, may Allah guide Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is becoming more inclusive because it's good for business. It's not good for business. La ilaha illallah is not good for business because you're exclusive. You're saying there's only one truth. You're not good for business. We have to say there's lots of gods. So, for example, the mushrikeen, just listen to the sound of it, right? When they used to go on Hajj, they would say, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik, la sharika laka, la sharika laka, labbaik illa. So they used to say the same talbiyah that we say. They said, oh, you have no sharik apart from this sharik. So they said the same thing, but then they would add, right? Yeah, there's no God at all apart from this God. So they would add things, and everybody would come with their own God, right? That's how they did things, right? And so this is the footsteps of the Shaitan, changing things bit by bit. The Shaitan doesn't say, hi, I would like you to worship me. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. It's always step by step, right? And so we have to understand that. So one of these things is then adding to the deen that which is not of the deen. So for example, yesterday, somebody messages my wife, okay? And they say, oh, there's somebody who passed away. Sister passed away, rahimahullah. And they say, we want to do a khatam for her. Okay. And so my wife's like, okay, sure, let's ask people, whoever wants to do whoever wants to recite some Quran, inshallah, fine. And they said, no, 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 sister, you can't do it until she's washed. I was like, reciting Quran for a dead person is not an ibadah mustaqillah. That's not an ibadah mustaqillah. That is not a ritual. It has no rituals. If you want to give sadaqah, if you want to make dua, if you want to say sorry to your sister and say, oh Allah, please reward the dead person because of that. You could do anything. It's not a type of ibadah. Any good deed you do, you say, oh Allah, please, I did this good deed, please, this person just passed away, please reward them. That's all. So now you come along and say, no, it has to be done on this day, and it has to be done in this way, and you have to say in this voice, and it's not like that. So now what we do is we make rituals that aren't rituals. You make things out of something that's not a thing. It doesn't have any particular shekel. It doesn't have any particular. Sawm has a shekel, has a form. You start at this time, you end at this time. That's how it is, right? A prayer has a certain form. You pray at this time, you don't pray at this time, right? I remember, for example, when I was little, my mum, may Allah reward her, when we used to be in trouble, she used to put us in sajda. So our timeout was going sujood, right? Because obviously you put your head on the floor, you can't see your brother, you can't fight, etc. So I told one of my teachers, I said, when we were little, my mum, sometimes she'd knock our heads together, sometimes she would, put us in sujood, etc. And he's like, that's actually haram. I was like, Sheikh, we were just little kids. He says, that's actually haram. I was like, Sheikh, we were just little kids. I'm just trying to share what he used to do. He said, no, sujood is ibadah. It has a shekel, it has a certain form. You can't just do sujood however you want. Sujood is sujood in prayer, or sujood al-shukr, and that's mukhtalif, that's debated. And then sujood at-tilawa. This has a shekel, has a certain form. I just like doing sujood. Brother, I just want to do sujood. You can't just do sujood. Because that's a ibadah mustaqillah. It has a particular shekel. You can't just make it up. So this is what the pagans did. They just made up things. They changed this, they changed that. They made rules for the Quraysh, non-Quraysh, etc. Right? But anything that is not a ritual, it's not ibadah mustaqillah, can take any form. It doesn't matter. You want to do it like this, you want to do it like that, whatever. It's not a problem. Right? Not a problem. Right? And so this is one of these things that the shaitan does, is it makes us create things and makes us emphasize things that are not important, and makes us ritualize things that aren't rituals. And makes us change the deen bit by bit. Another thing the shaitan does is we distance ourselves from the masjid, and we distance ourselves from ilm, and then the deen becomes extremely difficult. Right? The deen becomes extremely difficult, and then we don't bother applying the deen. For example, you didn't know that when you go to the bathroom, you could either wash yourself or you could wipe yourself, because you never went to the masjid and nobody ever told you. So then you know that your dad used to say, hey, before you go to Jummah, wash your private parts. So you thought you couldn't pray unless you wash your private parts. So then you're at work, oh, I can't pray. You're at a park, oh, I can't pray. Right? And Imam Baqara told me, he said he was with some Muslims and like, no, we can't pray. And he's like, why can't you just pray? Here's some water. He's like, I know we can't pray. Because for them, in their mind, the only way you can pray is to go home and use this water from this jug in this particular way, and then you can pray. So they added rituals to the deen. They made the deen very difficult, and it was impossible to apply, and then they just don't pray. Right? Marriage, make it impossible. Marriage has to happen with the imam, and it has to happen with all my family, and it has to happen in my country, and it has to happen like this, and it has to happen like this, and it's not going to happen. Let's just commit zina. Khalas, it's easy. Zina is easy, and your marriage is hard. Right? Marriage is not that difficult. Right? I was here with Imam Abu Bakr, just at the gate over here, and there was this couple, may Allah forgive them, right? They were religious, hijabi, they pray, they fast, but they're in a haram relationship for 5 years. We did the contract in 3 seconds. You know what the guy said? He says, dang. And I'm like, I said, yeah. And so he starts crying. He said, what does dang mean? It means damn. It means go to hell. That's what it means. When people say dang, people say damn. It means may you go to hell. It's a heavy word. We shouldn't say that word. We shouldn't say, oh, damn, that was cheap. It was that cheap to go to hell. Is hell that insignificant in your eyes that you should say it all the time? Do you know what used to happen in America if you used to say those words? What would your mum do to you in America? For the average white American, she would knock you silly. She would put super soap in your mouth because you're treating people who read the Bible, like you're talking about Allah, you're talking about the paradise and hell as if it's insignificant. That's a sin. You can't do that. That's normal white American culture that you can't say the word damn, you can't say the word Jesus, you can't say the word God, right? You can't say things like that because it's inappropriate, it's not respectful. So we shouldn't say these things. Anyway, the point is, he was so shocked that he's been in sin for 5 years and he got married in 3 seconds. And how much did it cost him? All he said was, oh yeah, I'll pay her $500. That was it. And he didn't even have the cash. It's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. But we make the haram easy because we follow the steps of the shaitan. It becomes unbelievably impossible, right? Your dad is telling you, you have to be a doctor. Your brother's a doctor. Your other brother's an engineer. You are failure. Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass me. So now you're forced to go and study. And then you're failing. Now I'm forced to cheat because I'm scared of my dad. And then I'm forced to take a riba loan in order to get into med school. And then I'm forced to do this and forced to do this, all this haram because my parents are like basically bullying me my whole life. I didn't even want to be a doctor. I don't want to do any of these things, right? But we make the deen impossible. We make the halal. The halal is supposed to be easy. It's not difficult, right? So don't follow the steps of the shaitan. Another of the footsteps of the shaitan and many of these things is al-israr ala tark al-awla. So there's something that is better, and you know that it's better, and you know that you should do it, but it's not important. You say to yourself, it's not makruh, and it's not haram, so I'm going to do it. You say, yeah, but it's not the best thing to do. So yeah, I know. But it's not makruh and it's not haram, so don't worry about it. It's not a big problem. It's not a problem. So what do? For example, you just don't do it. And then you don't do it again, you don't do it again, and you don't do it again, and you don't feel any problem because it's not makruh. You're not doing anything that Allah has forbidden. Nor are you doing something that is haram. It's not a problem. So then what happens is you then start missing, then you start doing the makruh, then you start missing the sunnah on a regular basis. And you start doing the makruh on a basis. I know that it's makruh, but I do it on a daily basis. I'm not talking about makruh tahrimi. Makruh tahrimi means haram. What I'm talking about is something that's makruh. We shouldn't do that. Right? So for example, some scholars, they say, for example, drinking standing up, it's debated. But they drinking standing up, it's makruh according to some scholars. So you know that it's makruh, but you keep doing it. You're eating with your left hand, and you know that it's makruh. It's like, it's okay. It's not haram, brother. It's not haram. Chill out. It's not a problem. Leave me alone. It's not makruh. It's not haram. It's just makruh. So you do the makruh again and again and again. And shaitan is holding your hand. And he's telling you. And in your mind, shaitan is not some demon, by the way. Shaitan is, to you, your own self-image. To the sheikh, he's a sheikh. And he says, sheikh, you should speak to the sister. Having more than one wife is sunnah. He's talking to you in a haram way. To the businessman, he says, this is achievement, you should do this. To the dad, he talks to you, the dad, to the housewife, to the child. Everybody, he's not some demon in our mind. He's us. He always comes to us as us. He talks in our voice with our logic. He's very clever, right? He talks to us based on our own values. And he uses the systems in your head, right? So he says to you, hey, you studied, the sheikh said it was makruh and it's not haram, so you can do it, right? In the Arab world, makruh means halal, right? I can do it, it's makruh. Makruh means Allah hates it. That doesn't mean you should do it. Makruh means he hates it, but he's not threatening you with hellfire. So that's not a good word. But anyway, it's makruh, it's not haram, I'm going to do it. It's makruh and not haram, I'm going to do it. So now you're doing the makruh on a daily basis. You eat with your left hand all the time. You do this all the time. You talk in the bathroom. You do this, all sorts of different things in life. And you just persist, that's okay. And you tell yourself, I'm okay because I'm not doing the haram. And then you start doing things that some people say is haram and some people don't say haram. Right? So I knew, for example, one student of knowledge. And he says he was Hanafi, strong Hanafi, studied a lot of Hanafi fiqh. And he laughed at me once and said, hey, don't tell anybody, but I don't pray witr. Right? Because some people say witr is sunnah, and some people say it's witr is wajib. So it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I'm doing sin according to some scholars, and not sin according to other scholars. So I'm okay. Don't worry about it. So now he's into the al-haram al-mukhtalif fi. Some people say it's haram, some people it's not haram. But it's okay. And now he's doing the haram al-muttafaq alayh. There's the haram that everybody agrees this is haram. But he says it's okay, I can make tawbah. Who's perfect anyway? Who's perfect anyway? So he started off with one goal in life, and now he's persistently doing the haram, but that's just one haram. And then another haram that he persists in, and then another haram that he persists in, and then another haram that he persists in, and then he starts to have doubts. Somebody says, bro, have you read this hadith? And you're like, oh, and he's got a problem now. And he's confused because look at his iman levels. They were here, and now they're here. Right? Why do drug addicts die? They don't usually die of overdose. Drug addicts don't usually die of overdose. They die because their immune system is so low. They're not eating properly. They're sharing needles. You got the wrong needle, you die. So this person is not going to die of an overdose in his iman. But his iman is so low that he's doing the haram daily basis. So one thing comes along and he just leaves the deen because it's too hard. Somebody comes along, he's confused. But all Muslims are terrorists. All Muslims are like this. This happened, that happened. The imam cheated on his wife, and he leaves the deen. That's what happens. Mm-hmm. So you'll see people like that. Oh, the problem with brother, I know what happened to you. They say, you know why I left the deen? Because of the shuyukh, because of the Maulana, because of that. I know exactly what happened to you. This. You left the awla. You knew something was good, and you didn't do it. You said, I accept not to be a pure slave of Allah. As the Prophet said, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. Should I not be a slave who is shakur? Shakur is not shakir. Shakir is I appreciate Allah. Shakur is the very substance of gratitude. Right? Like wudu. Wudu is the very substance, the material you used for wudu. Or sahur is the food that you eat for sahur. It's the substance, the thing that you use. So shakur is, should I not be the very substance of gratitude? Like, and I have to do what is best. So you used to be up here, and then boom. And then the Dajjal came. Goodbye. You had a divorce. Goodbye. So your family, your daughter died. Goodbye. One little thing, right? What's it called? Forest fires. Everything is totally dry. Everything is totally dry. Just need one match. Any minute, lightning, boom. The whole thing is on fire. Everything gone. So this is how it works. Every single believer who wakes up as a kafir started off at the wrong decision. You started off here. So the day that you missed the sunnah, you knew that it was sunnah, but it's okay. Is it haram to go to sleep without wudu? No, it's not. It's not makruh or haram to go to sleep without wudu. But you said, I'm not going to do it. The thought came, the Prophet ﷺ said, when you go to sleep and you're tired, make wudu and say this dua. But you said, it's okay. It's not obligatory. I don't have to do it. So you accepted that. And you said, I am okay with that. I'm okay with leaving the sunnah. And then I'm okay with doing the makruh. And then I'm okay with doing the haram. And then your iman is so weak, goodbye. That's how it works. That's how it is. So every single one of us, we shouldn't be scared when we're doubting the deen. We should be scared when we start missing the sunnah on a regular basis. You know it is sunnah, we're not going to do it. It's Friday, Surah Al-Kahf. Yeah, it's okay. It's not wajib. And the hadith is probably weak. This is how things work. So people ask, people ask questions. They ask questions, but they're not real questions. Like somebody says, you're a doctor, and somebody says, I've got these back problems and my shoulder problems. And they're like, I need to go to a chiropractor. You have stress issues. He knows immediately it's stress. That's what happens. This and this, it's immediate. A lot of the times there's no cause. It's just stress. I've got a lot of digestive issues. Could you have maybe I have this? Like, no, it's stress. You are stressed out. Okay. Oh, and then you go and realize why you're stressed out my marriage and say, do you know how to communicate? No. So you don't know how to communicate. So then you get stressed out in your marriage and stressed out at work. And then you have a back problem, and then you're off work, and then you can't pay the rent, and it gets worse. System. It's like, brother, learn how to communicate. So the same thing, when you accept to leave the sunnah, you accept to do the makruh, and then you accept to do the haram, and then you persist in the haram, and then it's one slippery slope. That's how it is. One slippery slope. It doesn't work like, hey, worship me. The shaitan doesn't stand up and say, worship me. No one's going to do that. Right? It's a funnel. Right? It's a sales tack, right? That's what's in sales, right? You do that. Hey, are you tired of living in an expensive country? And then next thing, and then next thing, and then next thing, and then you bought the property in Venezuela or whatever it is, right? It's all like that. So whenever we accept from ourselves, I am happy to leave something that Allah wants me to do. Whenever you say that, you see that in your head, know that you're accepting the consequences, which is kufr at the end of the day. Right? So I always mention this, one of my shuyukh, one of my greatest teachers ever, Sheikh Homer Simpson.
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 افتح يا Simpson.
أيوة. Homer Simpson from The Simpsons. Okay? So the joke is he's a cartoon. The joke is he's really stupid, but he's actually really intelligent. Right? He's really stupid, but he's actually really intelligent. So one day he comes home and his wife isn't there. Okay, maybe there's a letter on the table. Oh, I'm coming back a little bit later. Sweetheart, there's some food I left for you. Da, 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 da. Nothing. All it is some defrosting sausages in the sink. Imagine some meat defrosting in the sink. That's it. And so because he's clever and not dumb, he freaks out. He says, this is the beginning of the end of the marriage. He sees the beginning of the end. Right? We don't eat together. We don't talk together. There's not even this basic stuff. It's already a divorce. It's already gone. Right? You don't speak to your kids. The kids don't like you. You never communicate. Whether they live with you, then you have to live with me. You don't even work together anyway. It's already apart. So he's clever and he already sees the beginning of the end. So every single one of us, we have to be smart as Homer Simpson. Yeah.
He's very lucky.
He's very lucky.
That she's gone with the wind.
Inshallah, right? But alhamdulillah, they got back together, and that's alhamdulillah, I mean. But the point is, we have to be clever. Whenever you see yourself going down, you say, this is not going to be the beginning of the end. No. Astaghfirullah, I don't want to be that person. Let's go up again. Astaghfirullah from leaving the sunnah regularly. Astaghfirullah from doing makruh regularly. Astaghfirullah from doing the haram. I don't want to be that person, right? This is Ebenezer Scrooge, right? He wakes up Christmas Carol. He has the three ghosts that come to him, and he has this chance. Allah shows him, what are you going to be? But what people say about when you die, what were things happening here? They give you a chance. Right, so this is the Quran. The Quran gives us a chance, right? Here's Sonny in the back of, I don't know, many of us have almost died, but Sonny, for example, it's like he can taste that, smell the scenes and things like, you almost died. This scenario. It's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you a second chance. And I'm going to take it. Right? My dad always used to say that. He said he died almost 3 times. Right? Rahimahullah, he's passed away. But like before that, he almost died 10 years before that. And other scenarios, he almost died. He was in prison in India. Right? He was in prison in India, and he always told us a story. He said, I was in prison in India, and there was this what was it? There was this kid, some teenager who was in prison, very rude. Right? My dad was always someone he didn't like dhulm. He got very angry when there's dhulm, like oppression. So there was a teenager who was in prison, and he was very rude to everybody. And there was this disabled guy in prison who was mentally disabled. So this young teenager, he used to go up to the disabled guy and knock on his head and run off, like be very rude to him, like on his head. So my dad was like, "It's not nice. Don't do that. Right? Don't do that." Like the poor guy, he's disabled. He's mentally disabled. He doesn't know. Like, don't do that. The kid was like, "Whatever." So my dad was like, "Don't do that. Like, don't." Kid kept doing it. So my dad blew up. And just my dad was a rugby player. Like I'm skinny. Like he was kind of strong, right? Knocked the guy out, and he's a small Indian guy, and the guy just was like the whole face was like a romana, right? The whole blood everywhere, right? Boom, right? My dad was like, okay, that was a bit dumb, but khalas, I'm sorry, I had to teach the kid a lesson. What didn't my dad know? My dad didn't know that the prison was run by a gang. That's how the prisons work. The police can't run the prison, so they let the gangs go in. The gangs help to get their own guys in and out. So the whole prison is run by a gang. My dad didn't know that. This little kid is being rude because he's part of that gang. He knows he's going to be there for 3 days and he's going to be out. And he knows he can get food whenever people don't have food. And they're all buddies with the police. My dad didn't know that. So my dad turns up to lunch, and lunch is different. Nobody's eating. The whole place is totally empty. And everybody's lined up here. And there's this big, huge guy with a baseball bat. Looking straight, and he's like you rest with one of our guys. And so it wasn't one guy with a baseball bat. It was like one guy with a baseball bat and 20, 30, 40 other people. So my dad was just like basically punching in every single direction. And it's totally fine for this guy to disappear in the prison. It's totally fine because the police will say, yeah, there was an accident. Because the police and the gang are the same people. So my dad, subhanAllah, what happened? My dad, there was some guys from Indonesia or Malaysia or something like that. They were, and where they do silat, so martial arts silat. So these sailors knew my dad, and they went in there, they did their silat, martial arts stuff, whatever. They managed to pull him out. They could have died as well. And then my dad got in bail the next day and disappeared, but he could have died then. Right? My dad always told me, he said, I've seen it, and Allah gives you this chance. And I'm like, I saved you. What are you going to do about it? You die again. This happens. My dad was on a motorbike, and in the middle of nowhere, this beautiful black horse appears. And then my dad wakes up. So what happened there was my dad was going down on a motorbike on a country lane, and this horse had managed to get out of its field. And it's a huge horse. So if you go into a huge horse, you're gonna kill, he almost died. And the horse, just like the kick of the horse just missed him. And he woke up and the horse's leg was all broken. They had to put the horse down, etc. It was like you could have died. Right? 10 years before my dad died, he had cancer, he was in hospital. They put a catheter through his artery here, and they went too far. And then the catheter didn't work. So then they put another one here. And they didn't realize this was bleeding still. So my dad was like, oh, I'm in pain. They're like, you shouldn't be in pain. There's nothing reason to be in pain. He's like, oh, I'm in pain. So he was actually bleeding into his back, and he had no idea. And he was like, this isn't good. Like, you can taste death. Like 2 days like that, he was bleeding into his back and he had no idea. So he's losing blood. They're like, there's no reason why you should be losing blood. And then they found they realized it was all building up in his back, and they had to take it out and all these things. And he could have died, but he didn't. Right? So he always told me, he said he identified with the verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the Hawariyin. When they say to Sayyidina Isa, they say, can Allah do this? He says, subhanAllah. Don't ask the question, can Allah do this? They say, yeah, we just want Allah to send down a table spread from the sky, and so that we can eat from it, and then we can have stronger iman. He says, fine. I will ask Allah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, yes, I will do it. But if you do kufr after that, God help your souls. If you do kufr after that, like I made it very clear to you, I sent a prophet to you, I sent a miracle in front of your eyes. And now, if you do kufr, you're not in a good situation. So that's every single one of us. Every single one of us. We've been in situations where that didn't have to happen. That could have not happened. This could have happened. That could have happened. Every single one of us. I almost died 6 months ago, car crash. This huge car comes, just pulls out. If I had hit his pillar, I should have hit his pillar, right, straight on, and we would be finished. Alhamdulillah, I saw it, went to the side, it just hit the side of my car. Okay, fine, the car's destroyed, but it's not, we're all survived, fine, right, all fine, no injuries, nothing. But you could have died. Every single time. I remember I was 5. I remember waking up and remember the color of the light. I was like, Mama, I can't breathe. I had pneumonia. Can't breathe. Right? The doctor had to come from the other side of the valley and with whatever it's called, right? And so I remember, and every single one of us were in that situation. But yet, what do? It's okay. We do kufr, mini kufr. We ignore it and accept that we're not going to do what is right. And we accept it again on a deeper level. And then a deeper level, and a deeper level, and then our iman goes so far down. One match, one fitna, one problem, that the Dajjal turns up. You're gone. Forget about it, right? I remember before COVID, when Sheikh was saying that, he's like, guys, listen, COVID is hitting. You have to be healthy because COVID's going to take out the people who are not healthy. So it's like, how you know, you do aerobic exercise? Not really. You better be, but your health has to be on this level to deal with this kind of disease. Otherwise, you're going to go. So the same thing, our iman, you say, no, I'm still a believer, brother. I still pray now and then. I still, yeah, but your iman is in a critical situation. Like you're not safe to leave the hospital, right? You say, the doctor said, no, I'm not letting this patient out, right? The patient walked out, like, okay, fine, sign here, right? It happens, right? They're like, I'm leaving, okay, sign here. But otherwise, I cannot let this patient leave. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us, our iman to be strong and healthy, that it's up here, right? You didn't do the very best thing, you went to the best thing. So your life is between the best and the very best, not between the best and something that Allah doesn't like, or something Allah does not like and something that Allah hates, and something that Allah hates and something that Allah does not tolerate, right? And what's the worst kind of thing? Abuse of other people. Abuse of other people, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a Ghafur Rahim, He's nice, but He doesn't accept abuse of other people. So if you cannot stop abusing other people, right, then get out of the situation. You're in an abusive marriage. I keep 3 times you hit your wife in the face. Brother, you have a problem. Take responsibility. Distance yourself. Don't harm other people. Right? This happens, subhanAllah. You know, I see this stuff because people questions come. My friend, he said, you know, you're helping somebody out. He's like, brother, you know, I had an argument with my wife. Okay, what happened? I kicked her in the face. He got angry. He's a Taekwondo black belt. And it's like, so what do you expect Allah to do with you? Like you wrong people. You're wronging people. You're wronging people. You're wronging people. What do you think Allah's going to do with you? So many people, they're like, no, I have to stay in this situation. No, you have to sort yourself out. You have to get out. You're a drug addict. You're harming people. You're in a relationship. You're harming people. You're harming your kids. You're harming this. You're harming that. You keep doing it again and again and again. It's like, what do you expect Allah's going to do with you? Right? Allah's name is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. He's also Al-Muntaqim. He's the avenger. And he tolerates offenses to himself. Like we can offend Allah again and be rude to Allah again and be rude to Allah, but He doesn't tolerate offense of other people. He doesn't. The ant that you pinned to the floor and crushed for no reason. The ant was in nature. There's no reason to kill that ant, right? Why did you pull his leg off? He doesn't tolerate that, right? So this is the footsteps of the shaitan, is you doing the wrong and you're doing the wrong and doing the wrong. Say, no, I must be a good person. I lead the prayer in the masjid. We don't care if you lead the prayer in the masjid. This is not Farid Dingle. This is Sheikh Farid Dingle. It's not a real person. Farid Dingle is when he goes home. That's Farid Dingle. That's you, right? That's the you. That's the real you. Not the you that's seen in front of the manager, the you that's seen in front of the public. Oh, Sheikh Farid, please make dua for me. You have no idea how filthy my heart is, Habibi. You have no idea. Why are you coming to ask me? Why do you think I'm a religious person? I built a masjid. Fantastic. That's going to pay for 1/10 of the oppression you did to people. 1/10. I've been on Hajj 10 times. Fantastic. With haram money, mashallah. Allah didn't accept it, and you're going to carry all the sins of all the people you oppressed. And so this is the footsteps of shaitan, is that you keep harming people again and again and again. You keep criticizing people for no reason. You're harsh to people. You're cruel to people. And you say, I'm okay. I'm a good person. I did Surah Al-Kahf. And Surah Al-Kahf is cursing you. Right? Sisters, for example, I'm going to be straight, right? Sisters in a relationship. I can't do this. Like I can't be with my husband. I cannot give my body to my husband. I can't do it. Sister, rahimallah imra'an arafa qadrahu wa waqafa indahu. May Allah show mercy to somebody who knows their had. Like what can you actually do? And they stop at that. You want to be paid for something you're not doing. Don't. Right? So if a woman, like that's what the contract is. Nikah, brothers and sisters, means intercourse. That's what it means. Nikah means intercourse. So like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry, sister. That's what you agreed to. That is like you're being paid for that. That's what it is. Like your food and lodging is for that. And you're like, oh, but I'm not in the mood. I don't like my husband. Then ask for a khula. Say, brother, please, I don't, I don't have anything against you, or I do have something against you, but I want to forgive you. I can't be in this relationship. Please take my jewelry, take everything. Let's just agree. Khalas, just finish it. But that would be bad for her name. That would be bad for his name. So they stay in the abuse. He's angry and cusses her out. She's like, I'm not going to do this. Sort your marriage out, then try and sort it out again, and then try and sort it out again. And then khalas, respect yourself and don't abuse other people. Don't be abusive to her. Don't be abusive to him. Khalas. Right? She can ask, say, do you forgive me? And he says, I don't forgive you. Okay, then I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm not forgiven. Right? I'm being employed by Muhammad Shuman. Brother, I'm sorry, my kid is sick. Can I not come today? He's like, no. Okay, then I leave the job. You want to be paid for a job and you're not doing it. You ask him, do you forgive me? He says, no. So, okay, then don't do the job. Say, I can't, my son's sick. My other child is this. I can't do what you're paying me for. Right? So this is continual dhulm. So look at the ummah. And we're like, why is the ummah لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان? Every single person following the خطوات الشيطان. That's how it is. That's how it is. Right? May Allah forgive us all. And then it says, eat though. Eat of the lawful. Yeah, habibi. Not eating of the lawful. Right? So eating of the lawful is 100% important. May Allah, my dad, may Allah reward him. SubhanAllah, this is if you see Imam Bakr's dad and my dad, Imam Bakr and I were like chalk and cheese. Like we're nothing alike. Like totally different planet. Right? We're super different. But we share many key things. I met him in the first 3 seconds, I understood him. We see eye to eye. But we're totally different people. Totally different people. But we're on the same page. So thing about his dad, the thing about my dad. His dad was always very strict with halal food. Very strict with halal food. My dad, the same thing. In England, there is more halal food that is sold than is made. There's more halal food that is sold than is made. So therefore, it's not halal, right? But in England, for example, we have HMC. In England, you go to a restaurant that says halal, says, are you HMC certified? They're like, no. Okay, thank you. Right? In England, when you go to Scotland, they don't have HMC. So they're like, is it halal? They're like, yeah. Is it halal? Halal? No. Right? That's how it is. That's what it's like. In America, you have HAFSA, which is actually same thing, HMC, the same organization. You go and ask them, is it halal? They say, yeah. It says halal on it. I know it says halal on it. Everything says halal on it. Right? Everything says halal on it. Halal doesn't mean anything. I mentioned this yesterday. You and I can start a kosher company right now. Like we could do it today. Start a company to certify kosher food. I'm not a rabbi, you're not a rabbi. I'm not Jewish, you're not Jewish. It doesn't mean anything. When you write halal on it, it means zero. You could not sue them. You go take them to court, you cannot sue them. You can't say, because it means nothing. It's like saying tasty. You know when it says tasty on the food? You can't sue them because tasty is relative, right? Whatever I can see. So you can't, if you stipulate something, you say, for example, it's kosher, meaning it was slaughtered by somebody who believes in God. Like you can't say it was slaughtered like this and not do it. But you can't lie, but they do lie. I know somebody, for example, who monitors the stuff. So I asked him, if it says hand harvested, he said, hand harvested means they touched it. It's like, dude, everything's hand harvested. I'm like, no, they must mean slaughtered. They said, no. Harvested means because you're going to make money. It's very expensive to have somebody go, that's very expensive. No one's going to do that. So you do machine or whatever it is. They'll say hand cut. Yeah, hand cut. I cut it up into pieces with my hand. And I'm like, no. He's like, yes, that's how it is. Right? Anybody in business, if you can make 5% more, everybody would do it. If you can make 20% more, everybody do it. Why am I going to sell to people? If you're dumb enough to buy it, I'm dumb enough to sell it. That's how it is. Marijuana was illegal. Now it's legal. Prostitution is illegal. Soon it's going to be legal. Khalas. If you're going to buy it, I'm going to sell it. If heroin becomes legal, I'll sell it. Why not? It's not about halal or haram. It's about, right? الدولار سبحانه وتعالى. هذا هو. This is how people think. Money is everything. Money is everything. This is how they speak. This is how they look at things. Money is very important. Money changes everything, right? Amazon only cares about the environment because the government forces them and people will sue them, right? So ta'isa dirham, abd dinar or abd dirham. The Prophet said, may he be wretched, he who worships the dollar. We worship the dollar. I'm not going to pay more when I can pay less. And they worship the dollar. I'm not going to slaughter it in a cost inefficient way. I'm going to slaughter it in a cost efficient way. So if he's making money, I'm going to make him. We're all happy. Halal, haram doesn't matter. So being very strict. So I grew up, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. I grew up in a place like I was far away from Muslims. Like there was like an hour away, closest Muslims, basically. And so we just didn't have meat, period. We had meat on Eid and that was it. But that's impossible. No, it's not. Don't follow footsteps of the devil. If it's not available, don't buy it. It's okay. It's not a big deal. No one's going to die. I remember my brother, he was 14, right? He wasn't even going to the gym, just doing some push-ups, big muscles. What, because eating meat? No. You can find protein. The islanders, why are they so big? Why are the islanders so big? They eat fish. And they eat a lot of fish, right? You don't need, so people are like, oh, I need this. You don't need that. You don't need that. It's okay to not eat meat. It's okay to not do things. It's okay to say no to yourself. Sayyidina Umar, he told Jabir radiallahu anhu, he says, do you just buy whatever you want? Yeah, because I'm Californian and I'm American and my deen tells me that if I want it, I have to buy it because I'm a consumer and leave me alone. That's the mentality we have. You're not a consumer. You're not a Californian. You're not an American. You're not a Palestinian. You're not a Pakistani. You're Abdullah. You're a slave of Allah. Isma' wa ati'. Hear and obey. Allah says, A, you say jump, you say how high. That's it. Right? May Allah forgive us all. So many footsteps of the shaitan, eating haram, persisting in the mukhalafat al-awla, persisting in what you know is not the right thing to do, distancing yourself from Muslims so you don't know about how easy the deen is, many, many, many things. He is truly your sworn enemy. He only incites you to commit evil and indecency and to claim against Allah what you do not know. And when it is said to them, follow what Allah has revealed, they reply, no. We only practice what we found our forefathers practicing. So again, classic mistake. We just do what is cool. We do what is on TV. We do what other cool people do.
الله سبحانه وتعالى الله نور السماوات
الله أكبر.
شوف لما فتح شوف ده ملوش قيمة يعني.
SubhanAllah.
This light has no value compared to Allah's light. So I feel it's dull.
So key thing, I just follow my own culture. This is what I saw my parents do. That's what I do. Wrong. Right? What does Allah say? Would they still do that even if their forefathers had absolutely no understanding or guidance? Right? So what do? We just follow our own culture. We have to, what's the opposite of this then? Following objective knowledge. Very simple. Say, give me a textbook on halal, haram that has been taught for 500 years. Simple. Very simple. Give me a textbook that has been taught on halal, haram, and you know that you have deen. Give me a textbook that's written in the 21st century. I don't know what that is. Very simple. Right? The students at school, they're like, Sheikh Fadi, why do you do old books? Because I'm teaching you the deen. Right? They're teaching you the deen. Right? Here's an old book, as opposed to people. This is a textbook written by my teacher. Who's your teacher? How many thousands of people have agreed on that fatwa? Right? So there's a fatwa for everything. I'm not interested in the fatwa for everything. I'm interested in how many thousands of people. Right? So don't just do, this is what I do in my country. Okay, that's fine. Does that agree with objective Islamic knowledge? Here's books. Here are the books. Open the books. It says this, it says this, it says this. Right? As opposed to, I've never opened a textbook in my life. That's the footsteps of shaitan. Like, I want to have opened a textbook of Islam. Right? Here's a textbook of Islam. Right? This is a classic text that everybody has been studying and commenting on for the last 500, 1,000 years. Right? Here's the Risalat Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, written over 1,000 years ago. Here's a text. Here's a text. This is a summary of the deen. Right? As opposed to, oh, this is what my parents did. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're right and maybe they're wrong. And he says, okay. It says the example of the disbelievers not responding to the messenger's warning is like a flock, not comprehending the calls and cries of the shepherd. They are willfully deaf, dumb, and blind, so they have no understanding. O believers, eat from the good things that Allah has provided for you. I.e., don't be like the mushrikeen who say, even though it's halal, it's haram. It's not true. Right? So the mushrikeen, they made all sorts of halal things haram. Right? And give thanks to Allah if you truly worship Him alone. He has only forbidden for you carrion. Right? And so the default on meat is that it is carrion, is meta. That's the asl. Until the zahir, until it is apparent that it is halal. So I'm in a Muslim country. I turn up in Sudan and I'm eating meat. What is the default of meat in Sudan? Is halal. It turns out that the meat was from China. I didn't know that because that's not the asl, that's not the default. I'm in France. What is the default of the meat in France? Is that these people are Christians. That's the default. Okay, these Christians in France, do they slaughter properly? No. So the default is that they are Christians, but they don't slaughter properly. The default in America is food is from America. It might be from somewhere else. I don't know. The default of America is that it's slaughtered by a Jew or a Muslim or Christian because that's 75% of America is Jew, Muslims. That's the default. And the default in America is they do not slaughter properly. So therefore, the default on meat is that it is carrion, that it is meta. That's the asl. Until you have something that is zahir, it's obvious. For example, I go to Mansour's house and I know he only eats zabiha meat. So like, okay, it's going to be halal. But if the asl, if the ada, right, the concept of the sharia is al-ada muhakkama. When it becomes normal and common for people to eat haram food, then the default is that it is haram, right? Do I have to, if I go to a shop, Muhammad Shaman has a shop for, he sells phones, okay? And do I have to ask him whether the phones are stolen? No, because the default is it's not stolen. But what if the norm among all people is that they all used phones are stolen? That's the default. 75%, 80% are stolen. Then I have to ask. So you don't have to be, ta'annut is when you're asking ala khilaf al-asl. Like that's not the default, right? Is this your, like, Muhammad Shoman comes to my house for iftar with a woman. I say, is that your wife, bro? Like, that's khilaf al-asl, that's muhrij, yes. Why you ask me that question? Brother, Muhammad Shaman gives him some cake. Muhammad, does this have urine on it? It's like, bro, why are you asking me to have urine on it? It's a rude question because it's khilaf al-asl. It's not the default. It's not the norm. But when it becomes the norm that this cake is always served with urine, when it becomes a norm that all Muslims commit zina, then you're going to have to ask a question that is muhrij. You're going to ask the question, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but if you want to stay in my house, you can only stay in your house with your wife. Is this actually your wife? So like, actually, no, it's not. Glad you asked. Right? When it becomes the ada. So in America, the norm, the default of meat in America is that it's not halal, even if they say halal. Because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. That's the default. The default is there's no muraqabah, there's no auditing, there's no checking. And so when it says halal, it doesn't actually mean anything. And so when you ask the person, the default on the shop, go and ask 10 halal shops, what does halal mean? They don't know what it means, and they didn't check. So you're thinking that they checked, but that's not the ada, that's not norm. So you're making an assumption based on khilaf al-ada, the opposite of the norm. As opposed to I turn up in some rabbi. Is it normal for some rabbi to eat non-kosher meat? No. So if the rabbi is going to give me meat, the default is he's going to give me kosher meat. Right? If this Christian, for example, they are particular Christians who they slaughter in a particular way, that's a default. Maybe in Ethiopia, maybe I don't know where. But that you say throughout the world, the default is meat, is meta, is carrion. That's the default. That's the asl, right? Because that's the norm throughout the world, right? So we shouldn't have asked questions that are pedantic, right? Maybe Brother Jawed, for example, he slaughters a sheep in front of me. I'm like, were you a Muslim at that second when you slaughtered it? It's like, bro. Because that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Khilaf al-asl. The default is he's Muslim. Maybe he's not Muslim. Maybe he's not, but I'm not expected to do that. I turn up in a Muslim country, the default meat is halal. I turn up in a place where normally people don't slaughter in a halal way. That in America, normally it's not done in a halal way. That's the norm. So therefore, you need to prove it, right? And this is not my fatwa, by the way. Right? Imam al-Baji, the great scholar of Spain, he was asked this question. He said, right, this is, so many people, one of the signs of the end of time is that we quote modern scholars. Like I'm quoting Sheikh Hassan, Sheikh Sheikh Mufti Hassan Hassanat, the Grand Mufti of Jordan. Like, who's he? With all due respect, we don't quote modern scholars. So we quote well-known scholars. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, so and so, so and so. So Imam al-Baji, he was asked this question. He said, do you have to ask about Christian meat? He said, no, unless it is known that they don't normally slaughter in a halal way, in which case you need to prove it. So I'm in Spain and they're Christians and Jews. Okay, khalas, you can eat their meat. Unless you know that they don't slaughter in a way, which was the case here in America. We know that they don't slaughter. You go to some Mexican house, they don't slaughter the cow or sheep in a halal way. You know that. That's the norm. It is not the norm in America to do that. So in which case you have to ask. You say, did you slaughter it in this way? Right? With a Muslim, you know that the norm in America is Muslims don't care. They don't ask and they don't care because as long as it says halal on it, they don't care. That is the norm. So therefore you say, is it halal or is it halal halal? And they're like, what do you mean by halal halal? And say, what do you mean by halal halal? And the whole discussion starts. So it is muhrij. It's very difficult. It's awkward. But we have to understand that we're in a time of fasad, where you're going to have to ask questions. Soon you're going to have to ask the question, brother, was the imam who gave khutbah, was he a male or female? You don't have to ask that question now because it's obvious when male is a male and female, female. Soon it won't be obvious. Right? In the past, I could send my kid to Mansour's house and it's fine. The Prophet said at the end of time, you won't be able to send your kids to a man's house because you're going to have people have ghayrat, they'll have jealousy over their women. And so they have jealousy over their little boys as they used to have jealousy over their women. Before we used to say, no, a man shouldn't be alone with a woman. Now we can say a man shouldn't be alone with a little boy. That's what it's going to be like. So when the time becomes messed up, you have to ask questions that are awkward because it becomes, now the aada, it becomes the norm, right? That's become the norm. You ask anybody who deals with the meat industry, they're going to know that. That's how it is, right? That the meat is not like this. Nobody is there to do the checks and balances. So the default is it's not halal because that's the cheapest way to do it. The default is everything's done in the cheapest possible way. So carrion, blood, swine, and that which is slaughtered in the name of other than Allah. But if someone is compelled by necessity, yeah, but I'm in a non-Muslim country and I need to eat meat, you don't need to eat meat. Right, brother, I'm just going to go on a little tangent quickly. Inshallah, I know there's lots of points here, but there's 4 types of haja in Islam. Difficulty, mashaqqa or haja. Right, when you say I need to, it's one of 4 levels. Number 1 is called darura, which is you're going to die. So if I don't do this now, I will die. Or my property will be taken away. My children will be taken away from me. I'll go insane. Like I have to take this medication, even though it has najas in it, because otherwise I go insane. Right? So we're talking about this called darura, like life or death. I have to touch this woman because I'm operating on her. How am I supposed to? I have to look at her aura because I'm operating on her. Otherwise, what am I supposed to do? She would die or she would be harmed otherwise. Right? So this is the shift from halal haram because of darura. That's number 1. Number 2, al-haja, or what's called umum al-balwa, which is al-haja al-mu'tabara al-amma. Right? So which is widespread recurrent difficulty. Widespread recurrent difficulty. Right? Like, for example, the difficulty of cleaning yourself with water every single time you go to the bathroom. All of us go to the bathroom every single day. You always get filth in one particular place, and you ask the whole world in the desert, in the city, everybody has to have water on them. It's hard. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there's an exception. You can just wipe yourself with conditions, etc. Right? Medical insurance in America. If you don't have medical insurance, you will not die tomorrow. But you will be broke in about, like if you stay in America without medical insurance, you're going to be broke, more than broke within a year. Your son fell over, you needed this, you needed that. You're going to be in a very difficult situation very quickly. So normal conventional insurance, which is default haram, becomes halal because of widespread difficulty. It would be very, very hard for all of us to not have medical insurance. Very, very hard. You'll be in debt for 20K, 30K within a very short time. Many examples like that. Why is it, for example, that you can look at a woman when you're proposing to her? Can you go around looking at women? No, it's haram. Okay, why is it I can look at a woman when I'm proposing to her? Because it would be very difficult if I had to marry somebody and I don't know what she looks like. That'll be very hard for me. It'll be hard for her. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of that widespread difficulty, I'm not going to die. She's not going to die. It's not life or death, but it's a haja amma. It's a widespread recurrent difficulty. And there's many examples of that. So the Sharia changes for darura and Sharia changes for widespread recurrent difficulties. And then you have two other categories. At the bottom, you have negligible in difficulty. I'm hungry. Dude, of course you're hungry. You're fasting. So can I break my fast because I'm hungry? I need to eat. I'm hungry. Habibi, that's not a reason. I can't pray because I'm busy. We're all busy. And it's only going to take 2 minutes to pray, 3 minutes to pray. Right? So you do have to pray. That's a negligible difficulty. I feel embarrassed if I pray in public. I feel embarrassed if I wear hijab. Being embarrassed for wearing hijab is a negligible difficulty. I need to take my hijab off because negligible. I need to talk to this woman because I really like her. That's a negligible need. That's insignificant. That doesn't change halal to haram. Right? And then you have the third category, which is debated. Some scholars will look at it negligible, and some scholars will look at it as significant. So what people do, the average Joe, is my life is all based on duress. Everything in my life is impossible. So therefore, everything haram has suddenly become halal. That's how people function. They put everything in the first category. I had to shake hands because otherwise, it's difficult. I had to listen to music because I'm stressed. I had to break my fast because, I wasn't feeling happy today. I had to take my hijab off because it was awkward. I didn't pray ever because it was awkward. So everybody treats little difficulties as duress. And then what happens is they do the haram and then they don't benefit because they didn't do you need to have little difficulties in life in order to grow. But you didn't do little difficulties, so they don't do it. So what is it they do? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, can I do the haram? Yeah. Could you eat haram food? Yes, if you are forced, but forced meaning forced. Again, just one other example, a similar kind of thing. There was this taxi driver. He was like, Sheikh, I have a question for you. He's like, once my dad got really, really angry with my wife and he shouted in my face. And my dad was like, he's like intimidating. He was shouting at me. He's like, you have to divorce your wife right now. So I was so scared. So he divorced his wife. And he's like, does that count? And I was like, yeah, it counts as a divorce. He's like, yeah, but I was forced. Well, your dad put a gun to your head. So being intimidated by somebody, like if your dad's going to kill you, that's fine. Your dad's literally got a knife. He's like trying to stab you. That's different. But that's not called ikrah. Ikrah is you're forced. Like they put a gun to your head. They were about to sue you and they're going to get away with it. They put you in prison. That's called ikrah. That means being forced. You weren't forced. You were intimidated. And say, I'm sorry, you have to deal with your own responsibility. Right? So many people, they treat things that are not significant as super significant. Right? And so you're not driven by desire, nor going beyond the means. So there's a qaida in fiqh, ad-daruratu tubihu al-mahdhurat, that duress shall make the haram halal. That's true. But that's not duress, Habibi. What you're talking about is not duress. The need to buy cheap meat is not a duress. It's not a duress. Right? That's number one. Principle number two, it says, wala aad, you didn't go over the limits. So principle number two, ad-daruratu tuqaddaru biqadriha. Difficulty should be recognized in its actual extent. I had to operate on the woman, so I touched her whole body. That's called sexual abuse. No, I had to operate on her. You had to operate on her leg, not on her torso. That's called sexual abuse. No, I had to operate on her. That's called no. So I had to see this part of her thigh. Then you see this part of her thigh. You don't see her leg. You don't see her hand. You don't do this. You don't do that. Right? I was forced. I was dying, so I had to eat pork. Okay, you had a whole like Sunday lunch, like you had a whole roast, like that's not reasonable. I was choking, so I had to have some alcohol, and there was no other liquid around. Okay, so then I thought, well, when in Rome, right? So then it's like, bro, so you took it way beyond its limit. You took it way beyond its limit, right? And many doctors will do this. Right? They'll be operating on a woman and then they'll touch her hand. It's like, bro, I just touched something else. Like why are you making a deal? So yeah, that was a need. There's no need for this. So every single thing is up to the extent of need. So I need medical insurance. Yeah, but I also got life insurance and cat insurance and depression insurance and what's called the Lakers lose insurance and every kind of things that you have insurance for. That's not halal. You were forced, you couldn't drive without a car, without insurance. You couldn't be maybe a house owner, you could be sued unjustly, you could be this, whatever. There's certain things you need to have insurance for. Like you can't function without this. You have a business and they don't allow you to open it without insurance. Okay. So the point that's a darura to qadriha, to its qadr, its actual amount. You went way beyond its amount. And you say, yeah, brother, welcome to the 21st century. Like, bro, it's not like that. On Judgment Day, you can say, Allah, I was forced to do this. He said, yeah, but you weren't forced to do that. You weren't forced to do that. Why did you do that? Right? So the verse is very important, right? You didn't want to do the haram, nor did you go over the limit. Allah put you in a situation, so you took the haram that you had to. This is the extent I had to go to. My son had an operation the next day. There was no way I could pay for it without getting a haram loan. Okay. So then I started getting into interest. Bro, what happened? Why did you start going the wrong way? So key principle, you can't go over the limit, right? So then they're not sinful. Surely Allah is all forgiving and merciful if they stick to the limits and if they work in the right system. But if they work in the wrong system, then you're taking Allah's signs as a joke. Inshallah, we'll stop there. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.